Kaja Kallas has accused Hungary of disloyalty after Budapest vetoed a 90 billion euros loan to Ukraine over an unrelated energy dispute.
British police have arrested former UK ambassador to the United States, Peter Mandelson, in a misconduct probe stemming from his ties with Jeffrey Epstein.
EU lawmakers on Monday moved to suspend the EU-US trade agreement. EU High Representative Kaja Kallas has sharply accused Hungary of breaching the bloc's principle of sincere cooperation after Budapest unexpectedly decided to veto a 90 billion euros loan to Ukraine over an unrelated energy dispute.
It's really regrettable that the decision that all countries reached in the European Council, all the leaders, is now that there is now stepping back from this decision. It's not really in accordance with the sincere cooperation clause that we have in the treaties.
The dispute relates to the Druzhba pipeline, which crosses Ukraine and brings Russian crude oil to Hungary and Slovakia thanks to a sanctions exemption. The pipeline was severely damaged in January by a drone attack attributed to Russia. However, both Hungary and Slovakia have blamed Ukraine for the subsequent halt in deliveries. Hungary has also vetoed a new round of sanctions against Russia.
Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó engaged in a heated exchange with Ukrainian journalists in Brussels after his country said it would block an emergency loan for Ukraine as well as sanctions against Moscow. Budapest accused Ukraine of blackmail over a damaged pipeline used for the transit of Russian oil.
Tomorrow we will mark the 4th anniversary of war in Ukraine, and we hear that Hungary plans not just to ban the sanction package but also the loan for Ukraine. As non-Hungarian European, I want to ask you why your country hates Ukraine so much and loves Russia so much.
We don't hate Ukraine. The problem is that the Ukrainian state hates Hungary, and the Ukrainian state carries out an anti-Hungarian political approach for the last 10 years. Ukraine behaves in a very hostile manner towards Hungary. Please ask the Ukrainians why they have stopped the oil deliveries to Hungary. Ask the Ukrainians why they put the security of energy supply of Hungary into risk.
A Ukrainian correspondent then asked him why Hungary continues to buy Russian energy. Szijjártó snapped back, claiming it is Hungary's sovereign right to decide where to purchase energy from.
And this is why Sweden and Finland
Postponing sanctions against Russia is a failure for Europe, Sweden's Foreign Minister Maria Malmer Stenergard said on Euronews morning show Europe Today. Her comments came just before Hungary blocked new EU sanctions against Russia for the second time in 24 hours.
I think it's a shame how they behave. I mean, every delay that we have in the adoption of a sanctions package is a failure for Europe. We need to increase the support for Ukraine. We need to increase the pressure on Russia, hence the sanctions. And I expect them to behave like Europeans today, but I'm not sure.
EU foreign ministers gathered in Brussels to finalize the 20th round of sanctions against Moscow. The aim was to approve the package in time for Tuesday, marking 4 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Last week, Hungary and Slovakia announced they were suspending diesel exports to Ukraine, accusing Kyiv of deliberately restricting Russian oil flows through the Druzhba pipeline. The move risks complicating the unanimity required among all 27 member states to adopt fresh sanctions.
British police have arrested former UK ambassador to the United States, Peter Mandelson, in a misconduct probe stemming from his ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. London Metropolitan Police said its officers had arrested a 72-year-old man on suspicion of misconduct in public office at an address in North London. They did not name him, in keeping with traditional British police practice, but the suspect was already previously identified as Mandelson. Police are investigating him over allegations he had passed sensitive government information to Epstein a decade and a half ago when he served as business secretary under Prime Minister Gordon Brown. His arrest comes 4 days after former Prince Andrew was detained on suspicion of a similar offense related to his friendship with Epstein. Mandelson was fired from his diplomatic post in September after emails were published showing that he had maintained contact with the disgraced financier after his 2008 conviction. Epstein was convicted over charges of sexual offenses involving a minor. Mandelson's ties with Epstein, who died by suicide in 2019 in a New York jail while awaiting trial, was further illustrated after the U.S. Justice Department released millions of documents pertaining to Epstein's case last month. UK police launched a probe into Mandelson shortly after, though the former ambassador does not face allegations of sexual misconduct.
EU lawmakers on Monday moved to suspend the EU-US trade agreement. The United States Supreme Court ruled last week that some of the tariffs imposed in 2025 by Washington were illegal, prompting President Donald Trump to announce fresh 15% duties on imports.
It's clear the legal basis has totally changed, and then we have the introduction of the new tariffs, which are totally different to the old tariffs.
The deal was clinched in July 2025 by Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Trump. It locks in 15% US tariffs on EU exports, while granting zero-duty access to most American goods entering the bloc. Earlier on Monday, EU Trade Chief Šefčovič also held a video call with his G7 counterparts.
What we told them is that for us, the clarity, how our deal would be respective, how our 15% all-inclusive tariff would be put in place is of utmost importance, because deal is the deal, and we have to respect it.
MEPs had already frozen the deal once after Trump threatened tariffs on several EU countries if they refused to let him acquire Greenland. Parliamentary work later resumed, and the vote on the deal was planned for Tuesday, but has now effectively been scrapped.
The United States and Iran will hold their next round of nuclear talks on Thursday in Geneva, facilitator Oman confirmed on Sunday, signaling hope for progress despite U.S. military buildup and renewed protests in Tehran. Oman previously hosted the indirect talks on the Islamic Republic's nuclear program and facilitated the latest round in Geneva last week. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told U.S. media there was a good chance for a diplomatic solution, with Iran working on a draft proposal for an agreement that would avert military action. The latest development comes as U.S. threats of military action have multiplied since a nationwide protest movement in Iran sparked a crackdown that rights groups say killed thousands. On Sunday, Iranian students gathered for fresh pro- and anti-government rallies commemorating those killed following similar gatherings the day before. U.S. President Donald Trump warned on Friday that limited strikes against Iran are possible, and both Iran and the U.S. have signaled they are prepared for war if the talks on Tehran's nuclear program fail.
When I sit down to write a book, I write it because there is some lie that I want to expose.
Again, how many fingers?
My starting point is always a feeling of injustice. The very concept of objective truth is fading out of this world.
I'm going to set down what I dare not say aloud to anyone.
This prospect frightens me much more than bombs. Democracy, freedom, justice have each of them several different meanings, which cannot be reconciled with one another.
It's about cinema. Cinema is about emotion, and it's one of the tools that I use. I use everything: music, images, graphic, to make sure that you are not only in the presence of just thoughts, but also of emotion, of thinking, of exchanges, of a collective community. When I started in cinema, even before, it was like you couldn't mix any political ambition with art. You know, art was supposed to be something special, something pure. The same thing with entertainment. Everything became entertainment. Even news became entertainment. So, but I never believed that it's not because it's entertainment that you can't put, more weight in terms of the content. And you will find a form to make it, cinema in my case. And I always believed that for me, filmmaking is a political, I would say, I had always a political intention in making my films.
Totalitarianism, if not fought against, could triumph anywhere. Do you begin to see then what kind of world we are creating?